Good afternoon, everybody. This is your boy Mkuu Mzee, and I am down here in the humble abode of my good friend, buddy, and saver, Tdka Maat Kilimanjaro. Let the people know you're here, my brother.
I'm here. See you again, as always.
Yeah, good seeing you too, man. We always make sure that when I'm down this way, I'll pop in on you so we can touch base and compare notes and see where you're at and let you know where I'm at and all that good stuff. So that's something that we do always on a regular basis. You know how we roll, right?
Yes, sir. Good breakfast this morning. Good
Yeah. I was too tired, man. I was too tired to eat, man, because man, I didn't get that much sleep last night. Then I was on the road like that. So, just give me some coffee and something like that. That was good, man. So, and then you let me lay down for a few minutes, so it was still good. So now I get on the road and head on home.
Okay.
But let's talk about a few things. I know that we had discussed the changes in my art, and I had made a couple of references in the last couple of times we got together. So, instead of asking you the questions, and I know you didn't want to get into any specifics because it would take a little longer than you wanted to on your Facebook posts.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know what's new. I mean, some of the highlights of the things that you did in the expanded edition for my art. One thing I noticed that we did talk about was under the principles.
Yes.
By the good author who did 2,000 Seasons.
Armah, yes.
Amari. I noticed that you guys highlighted and categorized those things. Explain that.
Yeah, and thank you for, as always, setting these meetings up, because it's always good to have a person with your intelligence and your heart.
I appreciate that.
And integrity, as being a person that discusses these things. Now, I just came through the door, you'd already got to the key section I was going to talk about. You always do that. So you got to the key section. Armah, we did this is our foundational book. We started printing books in 2013, essentially, 14. And Armah was the first one. It was 596 pages. And so the new version is 817. So you can clearly see we added quite a bit of material to it, almost going on 300 pages. We were making certain that things that we had held out and took our time and thought about. You see, you set time to weigh in measures,
right,
and then refine it. We are lovers of the work of Ayi Kwei Armah. It's just a great work. And the work that he did around 2,000 Seasons literally reads like a Bible of the
Yes, it does.
Yes. And so what you have to do is precisely read that book line by line and then extract the guiding principles from it. And so that's what we did.
Okay.
He did so much great work that it took time, 3 or 4 years, to really condense that in something that could be useful to these young people. So I say all that to say, that section that dealt with Armah's 2,000 Seasons, we got it in there. It's about 60, 70 pages. And then there's another section that was important that we add more Kmt material. Their principles, their proverbs, their sayings. And so we added almost 100 pages of that. You put the whole thing in there, not just a piece of it. We have been extracting key principles that we wanted to put in there, and we started getting to the point where we put whole sections of people's books from Kmt in there and sum that up. And then another area of importance was to modernize some of the newer things that were taking place in West Africa and in Central Africa and turn those into guiding principles. So we ended up moving something that might have been 300 guiding principles to 600. And so in that respect, this is what we moved the book to. Now, as you know, like anything we've been doing, we've been modeling the best stuff that's been taking place in the scientific world. You don't see Apple just making one phone. I mean, it's Apple 1, 2, 3, 4, they move. You don't see Windows making Windows 1 and stopping.
Right.
They continue to move forward, and so they ended up with Windows 10, continue to move forward.
Right.
You don't see Samsung just making one phone.
No.
They continue to refine it and improve it. That's what we've done. We've continued to listen to you and others who asked us about things that we had to do, and we included those things in there in order to improve the book. So what we've done is put this book into an area where we've got probably one more advanced move. I told you that. I won't tell everybody the details of it, but to put it in a certain area where it's not going to be debatable that it's one of the top quality moral texts that's out there. It's not a religious text. It's not even a spirit-based text. It is more guiding principles on how to do things, procedural things about life. When you're in certain situations, what you should do based on what our ancestors said. And so that's the guiding basis for it. And really, we started it off to do it for our children. Thinking about the condition that our children were in.
Always a central theme, right?
Always the foundational thing.
Right. I was just thinking as you was talking that I remember when I was going through initiation with Saban Fadishi, Judy Heru Shrine up in New York.
Yes.
He had us do a series of books, read a series of books, and 2000 Seasons was one of them. And he always makes you make sure you read the text, absorb the information, and then write a report on it.
Yes.
So I realized then, a couple of years ago, how important that book was. That was the first time reading it.
Yes.
Now, also a question. Did he write a book called The Healers?
Yes, he did. Yeah, that was another one. We had a few principles out of that in there. We didn't say that.
I was going to ask you because I kind of know, I bought the book The Healers. I went through it, haven't read it yet, but I figured knowing you, I knew you probably had to went there and look through it and see what you could do.
And this is what the SIVA process is. This is about this elders process, this priesthood process, where people clean their lives up and go through a process of initiation. This is what he's talking about essentially, like Kmt. And you go through that process of initiation so that when you reach elderhood, reach the stages where you're older and can give advice on these high levels, that you have faced everything. And so Healers is a wonderful book. And even though I didn't put it in there in detail, you better be sure that we're going to have some more of that.
I realized how foundational that book is as well. And even though I haven't, like I said, I got it about maybe 5 or 6 months ago, and kind of read the first maybe 20 or so pages, and kind of worked through the rest, just to get an idea what the text was about. And I know it's a very, very, very powerful
text. You should finish that. Now they've got another one that's important, Kmt House of Life. And this is really important because he really walks us through, using these novels, how we should be navigating the information we're getting from Kmt, how we can best use that to move these youth forward. And he's not talking about staying in Kmt in the past. He's talking about modernizing it. That's where I got that concept.
He says that very clearly.
Very clearly. We have to bring it to life. We're not staying in the past with our guiding principles of Ma'at. We're modernizing the material on a basis of what they did, extracting the guiding principles from it and building on those. We don't ask people to go back and try to build stone pyramids. No, we're talking about with the solar technology and everything that's in place now, we should be replicating that and building it in a modern form. And this has been our problem. People get trapped in the past talking about what we did and not recognize that they should be working to build stuff now, to get up to speed now, to be able to build a car from scratch now. I don't mean assemble a car. I mean build an airplane from scratch now. I don't mean assemble an airplane. We haven't even assembled one, but the point of the matter is get all the parts and put them together. And so again, that's the model that we have. Kmt House of Life. It's a great book.
And that way the entire chain of distribution, creation from the cradle all the way to the grave is there in our in our cultural domain.
And we had it in Kmt
at one time.
And we lost it.
Everything, all the raw materials were there.
That's
everything needed there. The blacksmiths, all the smiths of the different disciplines were there. They created those things that they needed to do. Everything was right there. If they had to import it, import it from somewhere. I think they did export a lot. But they imported it. It was up and down the river. And things of that nature.
The manufacturing capital of the world was in Kmt for 3,000 years. Literally, the most advanced process manufacturing in the history of the world, and construction.
And we know
nobody had skyscrapers on the level of Kemet.
No.
Nobody processed material from scratch
Right.
to the final product like Kemet. And we got to get back to that.
Yeah.
You about to say something?
No, I was going to say that everything was just so magnanimous that the people who were outside of that culture came in and learned. Much like we have now had to do the same thing.
We got to get better at this.
Yeah.
We got to humble ourselves as the Chinese did.
Right.
See, again, they lose sight of the fact what the Chinese did after the Opium Wars and then after the Boxer Rebellion. You know, they came to see very clearly after the Boxer Rebellion that karate and kickboxing, that's not going to stop a bullet.
No.
You've got to get what these people have. You first of all have to take their weapons, and then you have to reverse engineer and make your own.
Right.
And then you have to build your society that way by reverse engineering the newest stuff that's been done and advancing it.
Right.
And that's what they've done. That's how they caught up, and that's why they're now exporting engineering around the world.
Right.
They have by far the most engineers in the world right now,
That's true.
and they're exporting it.
That's true.
Because they mastered that fundamental, which is, what's the most advanced stuff? Let's get it, tear it apart, pull it to piece, build each piece of it, and put it back together. Everything, not only a car, everything.
Yeah, we have. I'm pretty sure we have small numbers of people that are actually trying to learn, the engineering stuff and all those other things. But we need to have a larger movement.
We need a whole movement of teams, coordinated teams, and we haven't gotten that. People don't work together. They're in silos. They're afraid to talk. Egotistical, most of this. Everybody trying to prove that they know something, not really recognizing that you don't see Apple and Windows, Microsoft trying to prove that they're smart.
Right.
Their technology is made on simplicity. Right. They're trying to do everything they can to make that next iPhone as simple as possible.
Yeah.
That next iPad even more simple. They're not trying to prove that they're smarter than somebody else in some stupid, silly debates. That's worthless.
That's right.
And this is what's happening with us. We're caught up in these petty, stupid debates and not putting ourselves in a position where we're learning how to do things from scratch.
And before we even think about dominating a certain segment of any discipline, we need to go learn what it is. If we had to go to a foreign land to do it, we do it. If they can come here, we learn from them on the internship, do that, come home, hone it, perfect it, and then do what these other cultures did. Now they're going to other countries and they're dominating and taking over those industries.
They're dominating.
We're not there yet. We're not going to ever be there. We're going to be a while before we get to that stage.
Until we get teams going.
Yeah.
Until we let down this egotistical nonsense that you get when you're losing. See, when you're losing, it's only you're losing by 100 points. Why would you try to be styling in the end zone when you score a touchdown? You're down by 100. You're not close to these people. We don't have anybody sending any technology to Pluto. Again, that's what hits me when you start talking about how close you are to someone. Yeah. When you can build your own infrastructure without bringing the Chinese in to build your dams and build your highways and build your bridges and your train systems, you can't do it. That's why you're bringing them in. Right. And that's the reason we can't do it is because not put ourselves to focus and learn what other people did to get where they are. And if we did that, we would be able to get where they are within the next 20 or 30 years. We could begin that process. But we hadn't gotten to that yet.
No. Right now, we're happy with the carrot that they dangle in front of us. Because like you made a perfect example of, dancing in the end zone, and you're behind by 100 points or whatever, you're dancing because you scored a 3-point field goal, or you got an interception or something like that. Meanwhile, you're still being dominated.
That's exactly what's happening.
And you know what the carrot was? The carrot is in this day and age? Is getting your image on Madden game.
I'm understanding what you're saying.
Yeah,
that's exactly
what I'm on Madden now because I got a dance in the end zone. Now I'm on Madden.
Yeah, I got a microphone now. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Facebook Live.
I'm on NFL, Madden NFL Live.
Yeah.
But okay, that's good, man. I think people need to know about those books.
Yes.
2000 Seasons, The Healers.
Kmt House of Life.
Kmt House of Life. I think people need to know that. And can you get the brother's full name again?
Ayi Kwei Armah.
Ayi Kwei Armah.
Yes, and folk need to know him. He's in his late 80s now. Yes. Like 86, I think.
I knew he was still alive.
Still working.
Yeah.
Still working. A mind is still working at 86. Right. Most people are done at 60, 65 as far as writing. Right. He's still writing. I got his most recent book just last month.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so he's still working.
Wow. Interesting. Okay, so guys, Maat, revised edition. expanded edition as far as how it's written on the book. Now, the next thing we want to tackle is the new Kmt book. So,
That's this
right there.
Yeah.
Let us know what's going on. It's finished, it's a baby.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it now, when I got here, and man, you're talking about a beautiful, beautiful production.
We took our time with this.
Beautiful production.
We used the simplicity, Microsoft and Apple simplicity, making complex things simple. And so we put together, this book literally came from a 2,000-page book. I knew we couldn't print it, but I was able to pull the pictures out of it and put it in this one.
Okay.
But this one is about 463 pages, and it has about 800 color pictures in it. And it's sectioned off into 13 chapters with an afterwards. We put the white invaders in an afterward section because they weren't doing anything to build it. They tore it down.
Apropos.
Yes, so they're in the afterwards section. So the Arabs would be afterward, the Greeks would be afterwards, the Romans, Hittites, so those are afterwards.
Okay.
Those are destroyers. I had an interesting discussion earlier today about this because what's hitting home to me is most people are not appreciating what has happened in our history. You see how the civilization is advanced, and then it lasts for over 5,000 or 6,000 years, and then you end up with another population there that's acting like they were the ones who built it. And most people don't appreciate that. Just like what happened in the United States with the Aztec Empire is now Mexico, and what happened with the Inca Empire is now Peru. The whites came in and destroyed that population. It was over a 500-year period. Well, Kemet was over a 4,000-year period with these people infiltrating and setting up shop on the edges of the civilization, and then building up their forces, and at some point getting strong enough to invade and then destroy things, and then Kemet throws them out. We have these wars to get them out of there, and then they come back stronger. And then at some point internally, you're having a baby, meaning the society is trying to turn it into something else, and they come in and meet you then, and they're able to win. And they're the ones now setting up the museums and painting the pictures to look like them. They're setting up the museums and deciding which artifacts go in those museums. The ones that you see, the ones that are whitest or look like them, those are the ones they're putting out for expression. So we had to do this book. And so I started on this project when I was in high school by accident, sitting in our library, seeing these stick drawings. I asking myself in my high school library, why would they draw stick drawings of Kemet or Egypt pictures, and Greece had the full picture? I was wondering why they were doing that. And later on, I began to see. Also, when I got in, as I got in my senior year in high school, was able to use the university library. We were FAMU High School, so we were on the campus of Florida A&M University. So we used the university library. You could see the pictures in the books were red-eyed. I had taken a photography class, and it was just clear on my mind, why are these pictures red-eyed? Well, they were trying to change the complexion of the people from brown to red. Or from black to red, so that you wouldn't think that they were black people. This is what these rotten people were doing. I didn't know how to deal with that then. I just kept my mouth shut. I knew it was important to do something about it. So I filed that, ended up going to Florida State, bigger library, saw it more and more. It was in my mind, but I still didn't have the mental capacity to do what was in my heart, which was do something about it. I got to Howard. That's where I stumbled on a job, working in the library, moving graduate books into the undergraduate library, into an annex. That's when I had time to figure out what was going on. Howard had a huge collection of those books. I was able to compare the pictures. You begin to see the difference. Some of them had the correct picture, color-wise, and then others, most of them were red-eyed. And so that's when I began the process of collecting, going to used bookstores and getting pictures, and ultimately ended up the largest bookstore in the country was John King Bookstore, the used bookstore, where I literally turned it into my research room.
And of course your daughter gets credit for
She comes in when I get to Detroit, where I have all this stuff, and I can't, it's so all disorganized. And she needs some work one summer. And I have this office.
Oh, that's a work for you.
Yeah, I got some. And so this wonderful child, and she didn't complain because it was a lot. It was a mess too. It was a mess. She didn't complain. I asked her to categorize it, classify it, put it in some order for me, label the pictures, do something that allows me to see order to it, meaning chronology, history, logic. She did that for 15,000 pictures, and that laid the foundation for me to add the other 10,000 to it later on. I used her system to do it. So I thank you, Nia Imani, my daughter, because none of this would have ever been done for these children if she hadn't done that.
Your father's very proud of you.
I'm very proud of her. So she did this hard work.
Right.
She did the hard work. This is easy. Once you got the pictures already listed, you got all these laid out, you got a chronology for them, you got the years, within a 100-year period, all you're doing is pulling them out. You pull them out from each period.
Yeah.
She's already put in for manufacturing, she put in for our agriculture, she's put in for leadership, she's put the stuff in for martial arts, military.
Wow.
Labeled the categories for me all the way down
Wow.
to miscellaneous.
Wow.
And then put them in time period.
Wow.
So when people argue with me, I'm just sitting looking at how stupid they sound when they have not put themselves to the rigor we put ourselves through to get an understanding of this.
Right.
Just shut up.
And if you want to know, just ask.
Just ask.
Yeah.
So when you go through that process of doing that for 33 years, you just let these fools talk.
Yeah.
You get out of the way,
Yeah.
okay, let them talk, because you know they hadn't done their work. And you know they're not going to do it because they're not that committed. They want to do something overnight, like Google. Pull it up and then go out as an expert, putting a black face on something somebody white wrote. We don't need that now.
No.
We need young people carefully taking their time, like my daughter. She took 2 years to do this.
Okay.
2 summers. Carefully taking their time and scanning these pictures in and organizing them chronologically, historical context-wise, labeling them logically,
right.
and then turning that database over to someone who could put it in the format that these young people could use.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need all this petty, dumb, arguing stuff. We don't need any more of that.
Well, at this point now, my brother, I think now is past the point of people not knowing. There may be a few people out here that don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say there's a majority of our people that do know what's at stake. Why it's important to do the proper research. Why it's important to understand what the factual data is, as opposed to what your opinion is.
Yeah.
All those different things. But it's ego, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's also, like you said, there's a certain amount of laziness involved.
Yeah.
Where it is going to take some work and some commitment.
Yeah.
And we're gonna talk about that commitment in a minute when we go to our research. But man, that right there. If anybody is still looking at getting this book, I think this is really a great gift.
Yeah.
For students.
Yeah.
Kids, grade school,
It's
high, all levels of school.
Well, we're certainly going to donate this to Marcus Klein. He has a
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
He's one person that's going to get it.
Yeah, we did one.
You did that,
yeah.
Quasi.
Yeah, Triumphant Leaders down in South Carolina. He's Fort Mill.
Doing great work.
Yeah, Quay's doing great work.
The children need this more than so many adults.
It's not for you.
It's for the children.
It
is for the children.
It's good for you because I have it. And I want to cherish it.
Yeah.
But you know who's going to get my copy? You know who I know?
Yeah.
My granddaughter.
Yeah, well, and that's what we wanted.
My grandhands.
And I say this, and I'm glad you brought it up, because this is the most important part I've ever get across. You see, as you get older, you get a lot of stuff piled up on you that you never cleaned up. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard to deal with people who've gotten older and set in their ways, especially if you got ego problems.
Set in their ways.
Set in their ways. It's hard to deal with that.
That's true.
So you tell them something, and then they come back trying to prove something else to you. And the point of the matter is, the children don't have that on their chalkboard. Their chalkboard is clean. Yeah. And so you can show them historically, these are the books that the whites have put. These are the thousands of books. They had a chance to show these people. Why aren't these people in those books?
Right.
Why aren't all these people in those books? I have a book of 2,000 pages with these black and brown people in it, from all the periods. You never see white people running that nation.
Right.
Until they invaded and won.
Mm-hmm. That's
So why don't you see that in their color pictures?
Came much later.
Yeah, and so why don't you see that?
Came much later.
Yeah, why don't you see the scribes being black? Why they keep showing the one or two that they let go through the system and end up being a scribe? Why they keep showing those? Because they look white.
Right.
We have hundreds of pictures of scribes and almost thousands of bodies that are on these boats, these models, they'll see this, that are all black and brown with afros, and they're not wearing wigs. You see,
and what did you call it? The modern transportation of the day?
it was just like flying an airplane today.
I love it when
whoever is on that boat,
Yeah.
this is a quality means of transportation.
Yeah.
They have to be able to afford to be on those ships and those boats. Just like you get on an airplane and go to Australia or go to Africa. There are not many black folk getting on all these planes. These are white people, people with money. And so in the final analysis, the people who were in charge of that civilization in that period were black people. You can actually just look at the boats and ships and see it. There are no whites on those boats. Right. I've looked at 99% of them. You never see anything that looked white on those boats, or Arab, nothing. Right. Just black people with afros and brown on those ships and boats. And so in the final analysis, our children need to see that. Because we don't need to be arguing with old people who are set in their ways. They're sitting looking at books, thousands of them, over time, thinking that because it was in their books, that's all that was there. No, they made that decision just to put those pictures in there. They selected those pictures to make it look like it was a white civilization. Right. And those books are still in place.
And believe it or not, guess who they were thinking about when they did that? Their children.
That's who they were thinking
Their
about.
children.
Yes.
Not our children.
Yeah.
Their children.
Yeah. And so you said it, and people have not really gotten that through their senses.
Think about that. They did it for their children, not ours.
Those movies that they show with those white folk dressed up like Kemet people, that's not for us.
The gods, with the superpowers.
That's right. That Tutankhamun that they made up, that's plastic and white, that wasn't for us.
Not at all.
That was for getting rid of the real thing and putting that in its place so these children grow up thinking that this thing was white. And then saying argumentatively that this is a scientific process they had to arrive at this. This is what they did. They took the original thing that we built and we painted and we showed who we were and put in place garbage, fraudulent garbage that they created.
That's correct.
Now just think if you did that with Greece. You put black people in places of white people who were doing that. But it's in every one of the magazines and little books and everything is being utilized throughout the teaching supplies. I've seen some of the 8K through 12 stuff using these pictures of this garbage these whites are doing. It's rotten of them to get away with that. Well, as we continue to move forward, the things that we're doing make sure that they can't.
I'm sure that your work, especially Kmt, this book will gain traction.
Yeah,
I know that you told me about some of your plans.
Yeah.
A little later on down the road. How you plan on doing that.
Yeah.
But you'll gain traction.
Yeah.
And this will start to infiltrate.
Yeah.
You know, the common folk.
It's going to get to black children for certain.
It's going to get somebody's attention.
It will.
A lot of people's attention.
For the children, essentially.
Before we move on to our research, I just want to also put a shout out to Ayi Kwei, your wife.
Yeah.
Tdka Maat Kilimanjaro. Yeah. Saber, Yara, and
they did good work. And
my man Yara.
Yeah.
Shout out to you, and of course the elder.
Yeah, Elder Haru. Elder Haru did meta nature. He was a cutting edge guy with respect to modernized meta nature. He helped Dr. Ricchetti with one of her books, where you're actually translating material from this period, not just reading stuff from the past, but being able to utilize the language in this period. Elder was one of the first ones who were doing that. Yeah. He was.
I swear, when he got sick, this is when you first started looking up, about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's when he was sick. And I didn't get a chance to meet him. Yeah. And I was so angry that I didn't get a chance.
He's just a wonderful man. You know? I mean, he was far ahead of his time. Yeah.
You talked about him so lovingly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so respectfully. I had to meet this man.
There are not many people like him because he was not college trained. You know, he's just his high school degree. He was an electrician. He really mastered that craft. But he seemed like he could master anything. He actually took up meta nature in a 4-year period and really reached the level of intermediate in that really 4-year period, where he was actually not only translating material but also modernizing it so you can come up with speaking and terms now. I mean, speech, speaking between each other now. He was doing that. And he was one of the first who decided to break that mold and begin that process of doing it. So no, he was a fabulous.
Yeah, the whole thing about the vowels, you know, with that middle nature, you know, putting in the sounds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That are obviously missing in the written.
Yeah.
In the written text. You got to learn how to verbalize it.
Yeah, that's still a different
They're working on that now. We got really good people working on that now.
That's still a different area. We had someone else who did good work. I have to bring her up. I always bring her up because she's the turning point of what we did. T. Isborg.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a woman who.
We can't forget her.
Yeah, she read Maat and began to change her life.
Mm-hmm.
She ended up with a fishery in Nigeria, setting up to move her children there. She had gotten all the material to move her children in a 3 or 4 month period, but she had a heart attack.
Yeah.
But she helped us. This woman took to the material she's gotten and began to apply it, and she literally helped me to get in a position to change the path I was on.
Mm-hmm.
I made a decision that anything that needed to be done, if other people wouldn't do it, I was going to do it. The art of research, I decided to close that out. That's 1,050 pages.
Right.
The Kmt method philosophy, 1,026 pages. I decided to get that done. We got that done in 1 year. Mm-hmm. 2 books of over 1,000 pages in 1 year. Mm-hmm. Then made a decision to clean up Maat and add the stuff that we've been sitting on for over 4 years and put that in there. And the same thing just happened as we transitioned into African time. Mm-hmm. We had to make the decision to clean up some things in African time. Mm-hmm. People got on us about West Africa, said you didn't have 47 pages of material in West Africa, you had 175 of Kmt. Mm-hmm. How can you do that? I mean, Nile Valley region, how can you do that? Well, we balanced that now. Right. So West Africa now got another almost 117 pages added to it. Yeah. Wow. And so we cleaned that up, and a few other areas that we can talk about in a second.
Yeah. Okay, so we touched on having to up your game and you know, making a commitment now to the correct material and the correct data and all those other things, not Googling.
Yeah.
Let's go into
and when you make a mistake, admit it and correct the mistake.
Oh, it's African times.
That's what we want. Get to African time.
Yeah, you want African time.
Yeah.
But we do our research. Okay.
Well, we don't have it up there, but yeah, you know, when you make a mistake, admit it and correct it. Mm-hmm. You know, when they told us about West Africa, there was a deficient area, and the problem was the deficient areas because when the notes and stuff and the reading was being done, we would focus on the most advanced things that they've done and trying to build on those. You see, the Europeans, they don't mess around with Greece and Rome. Greece and Rome is standard. They are gold standard, gold and silver. You want your law, you go to Rome. Right. You want your architecture, you go to Greece. You want your science, you go to Greece. Math, philosophy, biology, chemistry, you go to Greece. Philosophy, you go to Greece. They don't mess around with France and Spain and Britain and all of that. They know they had not done anything in ancient times. Right. They know they had nothing. Right. They know they were way behind. Right. They don't mess with that. They bring that in later and begin to build on that. Yep. Well, we have to do the same thing. You don't dismiss Kmt and try to skip over that and come up with something else. You build on your best and you move forward to the other things and extract the best that they did. Right. And see, this has been our problem. Ego stuff, petty, stupid ego stuff. You don't have a situation where you're arguing with someone who's gone through research process and statistics for 30-some years, teaching it to PhD and master's students, and you're arguing and you not pass one test. Right. You put a test in front of them, they would not even know any of it. They can only debate about a specific thing. The test is going to have 1,000 things that you got to know. Not 2, not 3. You're not going to have to know one research design. You're going to have to know hundreds. And then the ones you write about, which I had to write about 27 of them. I had to tell how they worked, when to use them, what techniques that are applicable to them, and then how do you process-wise set up a study around them. You can't have a situation where people are not finishing their certification and preparation. It doesn't have to be in university. It needs to be in some type of organized program where they actually are tested to see whether they have attained the level of knowledge necessary to move to the next level.
Right.
And we don't have that in our community. We have a lot of nonsense talking that goes around that allows all these folk here to run around here and get paid for talking mess and never build anything. I brought up Marcus Klein for a reason.
Yeah, okay.
Because he built that school out of his basement. And to think that this guy has done that quality work with those children, and you can see some of the work that he's done, and he doesn't have the support that he needs to have to continue to grow. He doesn't have it yet.
Yeah.
And then you have these other sorry things running around the community collecting money. Ain't built nothing over 15 years, and they're giving their money because they don't know what it takes to run a school or build a school. They have no concept of it because they haven't been through any process that allows them to understand the rigor that it takes.
And if they haven't been through the process, you do what I do know what our young friend Kwesi has done over in Fort Mill.
Yeah.
He's called Marcus Klein and says, okay, I don't know everything. What have you been through? What can you give me, the information you give me to make the creation of my aftercare program, school program, how can I make it a success? What tips can you give me? We need people to humble themselves and ask those questions.
It's amazing.
Now Marcus Klein has also just posted about a newsletter.
Yeah.
Frontline, right. So
we should support that.
I suggest everybody to subscribe to that because I'm just waiting for some more information. I want to do that.
Me too.
I told Marcus on the post that I was going to support.
I told him I was also.
So, you have our support, Marcus.
Yes.
But,
and that's what I mean, because they don't know processes.
Right.
They don't know how these things work.
Ask. There's plenty of brothers.
Humble yourself.
There's plenty of brothers and sisters out here that if they're working on a project that's important, that's good for the benefit of our children, and they know that you're trying to do the same thing, they'll gladly share that information with you. Gladly.
Kwasi has asked Marcus, and he's helped.
Yeah, he'll help me.
Yeah, and so that's the point I'm trying to make. We got to get these egos out of the way, and these talking heads. And this is my point. I don't want to hear what nobody got. I don't want to hear that.
Right.
Show me something in practice. I'm sick and tired of this talk that leads to nothing. This is what I've been saying. I've never seen anybody who's running their mouth ever do anything. No. I've never seen them. You first have to put in the work. If you talk about Muhammad Ali, he at least put in the work. And he talked about it after he put in the work. Right. After he became good enough to be the greatest, to defeat Sonny Liston, then he said he was the greatest. He didn't say that before he got his behind beat. No. I mean, before he's, beat Sonny.
He said he was pretty though.
Yeah, he was pretty. But we got to stop all this talk. And so they're paying people for talk. They're paying people for balloon, hot air, just running around with
we are feel-good people, man. You know what I mean? It's going to take us a while to get out of that.
Yeah.
We like to feel good. We like to hear people make us feel good.
I can say what I want to say about it, but you're actually right about that. I don't see much change in that area, even though it's great. But I'm talking to the young people. See, that's who I'm talking to.
Yeah, I get a little caught.
Yeah, I get a little caught up sometimes. We talk to these young people.
But you're right. We got to concentrate.
Yeah, concentrate on them because these people who have been living like that the whole time, they're not going to change in most cases, and they're going to find a way to hold the young people back by trying to make them continue to follow that path that's been a dead end.
And it is generational because as much stuff as we put on Facebook, it's a good medium for that. You expose the information to the people. They see it, they read it. They might even comment and like it, but they still go right back to the church. They still go right back to the mosque. They're still dragging the children to those institutions. And so what has that information done for them? I
know it's not, I'm going to say this again because I was tied into what you just said. I was thinking about it. I saw someone talking about African Civic the other day, and I was like thinking to myself, you got a European name, you're in the mosque. What's African Civic about any of this stuff? So why even bring it up? Because they can't change. This is what I'm trying to say. As you get older and you get set in your ways, you're going to keep the things you want to keep and try to get rid of the few things you get rid of. Well, with the children, they don't have that in place yet. They can take something like, well, that's your Arab religion. They wrote that stuff up. What in the hell are you running around with that? They can take the stuff and say, okay, you're right about that. Because they're not inundated with it. They're not soaked in it.
Right.
But people who are older, they get soaked in stuff, and you tell them about a name, something as simple as a name, they can't even work to change that.
And I know this is not the case for everybody, but I've seen a few people write in comments on posts. I even had one of my family members tell me, it says, well, I don't care if you're right, and I don't care if I'm wrong. I don't know what's going to happen when I die. So I want to make sure that I'm right when I die. and that I might be in heaven. Because I don't know whether what you're telling me is true or not.
Yeah.
So if I want to believe in Jesus Christ or Muhammad or whatever, and I ended up in heaven, that's the way it's going to be.
Well, that's how I came out not caring.
So it's the fear.
Yeah, it is.
It's the fear.
Yeah. And
that fear of that they placed in us is a really, really deep-seated fear.
Yeah. Well, it does take generations to change this process. I mean, tying into your point, and that's why I said the children who don't have that weight, that dirt, that mud, that filth attached to them that has now hardened.
Right.
You see, you talking to somebody with stuff that's hardened in them. I mean, they gonna try to tear you down every time. I have somebody there trying to talk about us. I'm just like, I hadn't said anything to anyone. We haven't asked for a microphone. We don't go around speaking on speaking engagements. We quietly did our work. Thousands of pages of work. 4 or 5 books, thousands of pages. We quietly went about our work and continue to. Because we know that work takes quietness.
Right.
Science cannot be done in the glare of horns. No. Science can't be done with people running around debating and arguing and yelling at you and telling you you're wrong. It has to be in a quiet space. Right. And so we take our quiet time seriously. And so whenever I see young people taking quiet time seriously, I know they're going to go somewhere. Right. Because you don't make scientific discoveries at a microphone. Mm-hmm. You don't make it arguing with people, petty arguments. Right. Your scientific discoveries are done in the quiet, in the dark, when things come together after you read 100 books in different areas. And then it starts coming.
Yeah, exactly.
You see, if we followed the methodology most people follow, we wouldn't have over 40 large books in our whole lifetime. But it was because we had a different methodology and approach that allows material to sit and merge together. And at some point, you reach a point of critical mass that you can use it. You say, okay, I need to write this now. I need to go and write it out. Let me get my journals. I'm going to write this out now.
Where those journals at, man? I'm going to rob you today.
No, we'll get my journals.
Okay, so let's wrap this up with African Times, the expanded edition. Again, you said you go through just like the process that Microsoft and Apple and all these other Samsung do, as they improve their product and perfect their craft, they come out with the better. The better results.
They don't have an ego going on.
No.
If somebody can point out there's a flaw in something, you correct it. You don't have ego like you know everything. You're not running around trying to prove to somebody you know anything. And you're not trying to make stuff so complex that people can't understand.
Right.
See, I see so many of these folk running around here talking in such a way that people cannot prove that they're right or wrong. And they're doing it in order to be so complex that the person can't understand what they said.
Can't nail them down. And
then think that because it was complex said, that it's something that's correct. This is what's happening. Well, we don't do that.
I think I see what you're saying.
Yeah, we don't do that. You have to look at things, see the things what you're trying to present, and see what mistakes you've made, and then correct them. Somebody tells you made a mistake there, you need to correct that, then you figure out how to do it. And then you spend the time, years sometimes, getting together the material after you read it that will correct that problem. And this is what we did in African Time. It was, we added 217 pages to it because we were able to reduce the print from 12 print to 10 print. So it's smaller print. So, it's tighter, closer together print. But we were also able to add the section on West Africa, which was necessary, a large section on West Africa. We even helped out with people in the very back in the appendix by adding a map section of West Africa, where when we're talking about something happening in West Africa, we show the map where it's happening at. So that's going to help the children in that regard. We also added more material summarizing the transitions between the agricultural revolution and the industrial revolution, so we can show people what was the driving force of Europe really taking charge of stuff. You see, they're defeating the Arabs later because they have guns.
There you go.
You see, they're able to get on a boat and come across the Western Hemisphere because they have the ship technology that has advanced to the point that he can go and come back. And not only go and come back, but when they get there, they have the weapon technology to be able to shoot and kill these people from long distances.
Yes.
The people have spears and arrows. They're not able to...
That's casualties.
Yeah. And so every step of the way, you see how they defeated the Aztecs. You see how they defeated the Persians, the Inca. You see how they defeated in North America all those populations with almost such ease. Because they were more advanced technologically than they are. And always have some diseases going on, but they were more advanced technologically than that.
That disease is just as...
It was lethal. It was lethal, but even without it, they still would win, and because they won everywhere else in the world, until other populations caught up, like China caught up. You see, they can't go into Vietnam and do that. They caught up. Okay,
well, that's why they got their butts kicked over there.
You got guns, we got them because you bring them. All we got to do is take them from you. And so they figured that out.
Pol Pot was backed by the Chinese.
Yeah. Well,
and so when he came into power, he kicked everybody out and purged his country of European influence.
Well, you can see clearly that we have to learn lessons from the past, and we haven't. So this book is tied up from Universe because we wanted to make certain that people didn't have filler information, not to see the synthesis or the connection between universe, galaxy, solar system, planet, life on the planet, organic life on the planet, then certain types of life leading up to human life. We had to show that process.
Good job on that.
Yeah, and we had to do that. And so having done that, now there have been some improvements. We put in there the new data around the DNA studies that have been taking place in Botswana, what is now Botswana, in Namibia, and Zambia, and Zimbabwe, showing that Homo sapiens sapiens was most dominant in those areas before it moved out. So we put that in there. We brought that up to date. And there are quite a few other areas that we were able to bring up to date. We also improved the discussion on Harriet Tubman, which is most important. We took about 5 pages to sum up her life. The most important life. Actually, I modeled my work process after her.
Yeah, you said that.
Yeah, I had to, because she would not take no for an answer. She saw something that had to be done, and she did what was necessary to close it out. You didn't see her in these little petty arguments with people. She didn't waste time with them. If they weren't going to do the work, she went on and did it herself. And so you first have to qualify yourself to do things and put yourself in a position where you're capable of doing them. You have to master your craft. You can't master a craft of talking. I don't want people who run around me talking. I want them to master their craft and skill. She mastered her craft, got it down, understood the protocols of each situation she was in, made certain that people carried out those protocols. I had that gun in their face. She made sure that those things were carried out, all the T's were crossed, all the I's were dotted, and every step of the way, she carried a precise process into work where she never lost anybody. She never was captured. You see, that's what you got to have, a planning system that disallows nonsense. And so when people bring nonsense to me, I'm not even working with them. I don't even waste time with them. I ain't arguing with them. They want to debate, take a debate somewhere.
That's important.
Yeah, we don't waste time. Harriet Tubman perhaps is the best example that somebody could have, because she did not lose one time. And there's a reason for that. She was overly prepared. Using the situation she was in, the context of the situation, the environment, knowing it so well that she knew when to go in, when to leave, under what conditions to leave, who to leave with, who to keep, who to let go, who to get off of the boat, who to keep. She did that. And so again, I chose her as a standard bearer of getting our work.
Can't do much better than that.
Can't get it done. So yeah, this is a book that people should have. It's modernized from 2016. We brought it up to date in 2020. It's really dense because we reduced the print size from 12 to 10. We expanded the margins a bit, and we added 10 more color pictures, whole pages, so people could see that what was taking place in ancient times. We put that in there, and we covered those bases. So again, it's going to be something that really is helpful with respect to the corrections we made for people who thought those things were missing.
I think it's important too when you see people get into discussions, not even arguments, just discussions, and they don't have the timeline right.
Yeah.
You know, we talk with Elder Tunji quite a bit.
Yeah.
And you know, he's big on timeline.
Yeah.
And you know, he says your volume, Robert Walker's volume.
Yeah.
Theophile Benga's.
Yeah.
Joke.
Yeah.
It was very important for those guys to have the timelines right.
Yeah, Walker, Diop,
yeah.
Benga are the foundations.
Yeah.
You should use their work as foundations.
So if you're going to talk about something that is based on some information that you think is correct, and you come in and talk about something that happened 500 years after you saying that it occurred, that means you don't have any idea what the timeline is. You haven't done your work. So I already know when somebody talks out the side of their face, and they're 500 years later or 500 years before the so-called incident has happened, I know you didn't do your work.
Yeah, and
I know you didn't do your work.
I'm glad you brought that up, because this is the problem that we have. You know, people reading these people's work, white folk work, and just becoming the mouthpiece for it. You know, at some point you recognize that the whites are just estimating these time frames to fit within a framework of philosophy they had set up. They estimated Kemet's development to try to put it underneath Mesopotamia.
Right.
They tried to say that civilization was after Mesopotamia and learned everything it could from that. And there's nothing in Mesopotamia of the quality that Kemet built. They built it with mud. They never reached that level of stone in Kemet's time. Let me make another point. When they actually set up comparing these civilizations or whatever they're comparing, they're actually discussing when Kemet became a federal nation, not when it became a civilization. Wow. People lose sight of that. They already had cities and states. Little nuance.
They don't catch that.
They had cities and states. Minis just unified the cities and states in the Delta and in the South.
Right.
He just unified them with a war. They were already states. 42.
And that's when they think civilization started.
That's when they're trying to say it started in 3100. And blacks are running around with it. Yeah. See, they're not thinking. So that civilization is 3,000 years earlier to get cities and states in such a formation that they could unify as a federal nation.
Thank you.
See, we're not thinking.
No,
and that's when I see people running around parroting something and read somebody's white said and they're trying to act like they came up with it. I know what they're coming up with because they're not thinking. A federal government, a federal state was never done in antiquity. The only one did was Kemet. That means they had to go through thousands of years of formation to get to the place where they formed states. Yep. They not only formed the state and the county, they formed the cities that went inside of the states.
Right.
And the states then were unified into a federal government.
Just very simple. Local government, state government, federal government.
Kemet was the only one that had.
Just think it that way.
Yeah,
and obviously when you look at the United States and even communist Russia and communist China, basically the same thing.
Europe is just trying to do it, and they can't get it done. They can't get it done.
Structures are a little bit different, but the bottom line is they're trying to federate.
That's right. And we had already done it. We're the only, and so that takes a level of complexity that had not been achieved in antiquity. And from that point, you should know how advanced that civilization was. To reach a political level, even though they had a monarchy ruling it, a political level where you had a federal government in place, and you had states, and you had cities, counties and cities. You had a place where you had your central government. You moved it from the Delta, you moved it to the south, in the area of what's called Wasatch.
Right.
And these are none but black people down there. There ain't no whites down there. And so I said that and finalize it. These folk are running around reading stuff. This is what they do. Reading something and reading some conservative, white, scholarly journal, and then putting a black spin on it and running around with it like they're an expert, and you can tell they haven't thought about anything. See, I carefully, for years, thought about this. What is a federal government? Where was it at in this period elsewhere? What does it take to build a federal government? The United States was the first one after Kemet to put together a federal government.
The very first one.
And it was difficult to do that because they had the North and the South, Confederates and the North, and you're trying to fight.
And you had people fighting to stay with feudalism.
See, you know these things.
They was fighting to stay with feudalism. That's why they went into those 2 or 3 wars, because they were trying to keep the feudalism right.
Trying to lock into what was happening in Europe, that feudalism. So I say all that to say, Kmt did a great thing that we gloss over.
Right.
They had a planned economy too. Most people don't appreciate that. Just go read the Soviet Union studies of Egypt, or what they call Egypt, what's Kmt. They had a planned economy, even though they had a monarchy ruling it. The political class that was ruling it was a monarchy of kings and queens and stuff like that. But the economic foundation was planned. And we did that for 3,000 years. The Soviet Union wanted to learn how we did that for 3,000 years. How did you do a planned economy for 3,000 years? Well, it organically evolved because it was tied to the Nile Valley, the Nile River, which you had to systematize and synchronize everything that you did in order to exist. And they did that because everything was tied to that river.
What I would say to everybody is that when you like you said, you're reading these other volumes, these other publications and stuff, and that's fine, you know, because you want to read as much information as you can, but you still have to discern the information.
That's why it takes time.
It takes time. That's why you need to get African Times. You got to get Robert Walker's When We Rule.
You got to get Robert Walker's.
You got to get that, because when you put the timeline, you got to attach it to timelines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, and everything else. I think the only thing that we will still debate a little bit, and I'll ask this last question for you, would be our calendar.
Yeah.
There's still a little bit.
Well, that's going to be
of things to straighten out.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be debated for a while.
Yeah.
I think Diop was closest.
Yeah.
You know, and what he's doing is synchronizing it.
Now you and Robert Walker are strong.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah,
we are. But he's synchronizing that with chronology with the actual astronomy of the planets, and then in relationship to Sirius B.
Oh, that's how you did that?
Yeah, that's how he did it. And he's right about that. He's telling you when the calendar could have started.
Right.
All I do is add 1,460 years to that, because I know you, first of all, had to have that process. You have got to have seen it.
Right.
You got to have seen the process before you can know that 1,460 years later it's going to show up again. You see, you got to know that.
Be observation.
It takes some logic to appreciate that. That's
scientific observation.
That's right. That's why we end up at 7725.
Not somebody sitting in the cave looking up and saying, "Okay, son, keep an eye on that."
It was
okay, grandson, keep an eye on that. Okay, great grandson, keep an eye on that. It had to be a scientific observation.
That's right. Scientific.
So when do we? First of all, let's get to the scientific part. Mindset first.
Yeah.
How many years did it take to get to that level?
That's right. And see that.
And then do the scientific test. People think they forget that this is a process.
Yeah. And this is what we're losing sight of too, because people see something as it's broken down or atrophied and not recognize that it was once something great. You see, and they didn't really appreciate what those people had gone through to build that civilization, to get to a point where you build a pyramid out of 2.6 million stones, each one of them weighing 4 to 5 tons each, and that you plan that over a 26 or 27 year period to stack those in such a way that they have a certain perfection, that they're not off by an inch. And nobody else has ever come close to that. That takes a certain level of preparation over thousands of years to get to that point. And so you know that the astronomy was advanced, and so the calendar is tied right into the astronomy. So yeah, Robin Walker does great work because he compares different chronologies that these whites have used, and then comes up with a logical summation to say, no, they're wrong, because we have to add 1,000, maybe 1,500 years to what they're trying to reduce Kemet to fit within their framework to keep it underneath Mesopotamia. So they use two tricks, that one and the one around the Federation. They get you on the Federation because people are not even thinking.
They don't key in on that word.
They don't. They're trying to tie it to a federation and say the civilization started there, even though the states were in place, the cities were in place, the buildings were being built, all of that was there. All Minis did was unite that under one rulership. That's what he did. And so again, they lose sight of that. That's 3,000 years we lose.
Remember those cues.
Yeah.
Those psychological cues. If you don't pick up on those cues, you're going to get lost every time.
Well, the cues of people wearing wigs and trying to make it look like the afros that the blacks are wearing. Everybody's got a wig on. Everybody's braiding their hair. These are afros. Everybody's red. They found a few red populations. These people now paint them red. The Arabs are painting them red. So we can't let these people get away with stupidity. And so we're not going to do that. We got a book, as we lined it up, said it was 2,000 pages. When we get the resources to print it, be full color too. This one's for the children though. And people be able to afford that one. But the large one, they call you know, we get the resources. You never know. We may get it next year.
Okay.
But that's going to be coffee top table, hardback.
There you go.
It's going to be a hardback.
That's a family edition.
It's a closer. It's closing. Ain't nobody need to debate about nothing after that. It's closing. So I want to tell you that thank you for setting up these opportunities to driving all the way down. I know you're going elsewhere, but the point matters, you do make your way through here. You put me in a position where I get excited when I'm around you, because I don't used to get excited around everybody. I'm a quiet person. I quietly go about my work and planning, and I execute the plans that we have to execute. And so, I told you about the few books that will be coming up in February. They're already finished. I never talk about them until they're finished. So they're already finished. Just got to clean up a few things.
Will you make that announcement too?
I will tell you, and you get the details, and we can tell everybody else. But again, we don't rest. We planned our work over a 33-year period. We wrote down what had to be done. We found out who could help us do it. We got everything we could get out of the people who went along. We hopefully got as many of them to go as far as they could go. Some of them passed, but they're still with us. Any resources we get in the future, they'll be handed over to the family. And so every step of the way, even the ones that dropped out, we keep them in our heart because they did good work. Nobody was left in a bad sight. We didn't hurt anybody. We didn't hurt. They didn't hurt us. It's just paths went in other directions sometimes. So the point of the matter is, our direction has to end up in Africa. That's where the process has to go. We were forced out of there. The physics of it. You begin to discuss the physics of any situation. The physics of us has us back home. We just got to find our ways back. And usually with physics, however something leaves, that's how it's coming back.
That's how it's coming back.
So thank you again for setting these things
up. So we talked about the Kmt book. Shout out to the University of Kmt Press team and the families, the supporting family. Also, shout out to all the young people out there that are now doing that work, who have come to realize that there's now the only way of doing this work is out there getting your hands dirty.
You gotta get your hands dirty.
Taking the time to read the material. There's no quick fixes in this thing.
It takes time.
There's no quick, and then of course you got African Times and the
auto research we told you about.
We talked about the auto research. You guys know about that. But and you had to get up on your game on that one, so we didn't gotta say that.
That's gonna take some time.
My brother.
Appreciate you, man.
Love you, man.
I love you too.
And we'll be back again soon.
Yeah, we will.
All right.
All right.
What's that?